There you go.
Oh, thank
Thank you,
you.
Ivan.
I have the great pleasure to present Stef Cybichowski live here in Stockholm, Sweden this evening. And the topic for the evening is things I wish I'd known when I started coaching. And we can go anywhere from there, I suppose. It's a wild guess. Do you want to say
Okay.
something before I tell the people about who you are so they know what to expect?
No, you do what you
I do
so
mine.
well. Yeah.
So this is Stef, and he's a dad, a musician, and a professional master transformative coach, trainer, and a speaker. He helped people from all walks of life discover their true essence and potential by uncovering a simple but profound understanding of the mind that brings us the ability to easily let go of what limits us and allows us to the freedom to explore our full being, our full capabilities, and discover the richest, most meaningful experience of life. But don't order yet. Stef works with business leaders, organizations, entrepreneurs, mental health charities, schools, and private individuals worldwide. 10 years ago, he was introduced to the principles by Michael Neill. He attended Supercoach Academy and then apprenticed with Michael for a year. For 6 years, he then worked alongside Michael on the teaching faculty of Supercoach Academy, where he started helping train and mentor new coaches who want to share the inside-out understanding with the world. And we were sitting 3PSC board, sort of, and discussing what could we sort of bring out and give to our members with value. And then it just came to me, of course, Stef should be here. He's been awesome, standing by my side, always there, like a man who walks his talks in my mind. And it's an honor to be presenting him and have him here as a guest tonight. So over to you, Stef.
No, thank you, sir. I am very profoundly honoured to be here, to be with everybody, and to get a chance to talk about some stuff that is very meaningful to me. I'm hoping, praying that that you may kind of see some wisdom in it too. And I don't know. I was going to do a talk on things that I wished I'd known when I started coaching, and I might still do that. But I had I was reminded today that it's my father's birthday, and my father died in 2015. But it one of the things that the principles has brought to me has been a realization that I, through the experience of caring for my dad. So, if thing as it feels very present to me, and I really, really, really want to share the story with you all. If you don't mind, shall I talk about that first? Would that be okay? Okay. So there's a saying that parents and children are our most difficult classroom. And I think my relationship with my own father had been very, very difficult for pretty much all my life. He, in my eyes, he was, he'd been brought up in a way which was very disciplinarian. He was very, very religious, which was a good thing for me. He came from an era where he had certain opinions that weren't very acceptable for me, I guess. I guess people would call him sexist, they call him racist, they call him anything that ended in ist, I think. And that, I think, as I grew up, that was a really difficult thing for me to accept, and we never really saw eye to eye. He had 5 sisters, right? And I remember when my son was born, I remember phoning him up and saying, our baby's come, our baby's come. And the first thing he said was, what is it? A boy or a girl? So I said, it's a boy. And he said, I don't like boys. So I think that kind of, that told me a lot about how our relationship had been as I was growing up. So in, what year was it? It would have been 2005. I got a call from Poland. It was my father, who was very anxious and very upset. I mean, my dad had a history of depression, and he said to me, I can't stay here. I have to come home. I have to come home. So I got on a plane and I went and brought him back. And because he'd sold his house in England, he didn't have anywhere to live. So he came to stay with me. And he was not in a very good place. He would sit on the side of the bed, rocking back and forth. He'd be crying. So after a while, we found what they call a warden assisted home here. So it's not a care home, but it's like he has his own room and he had his own kitchen and stuff. And he could talk to people, he could have lunch with people. It was a very nice place, and he hated it to start with, but he got to like it, I think. However, my job was to go there every day, 5 days a week, and do some cooking for him, to clean for him, to shop for him, and do various things. And as you can imagine, I was not thrilled at the prospect, because he was very difficult to get on with. He was angry quite a lot of the time. So typically what I would do is I would show up outside his room, and as I was knocking on the door, I was praying, saying, I've only got, this is only 2 hours. I've just got to get through the next 2 hours. That's all I have to do. So I go in and he would begin shouting at me. And whatever had happened on the television that day, he would be angry about. Whatever happened, my sister, who lived quite a long way away, he would shout about her. He would just be very angry all the time. And so I would spend the 2 hours just kind of trying to close my ears and not get involved in this, not get angry myself, but I couldn't help myself sometimes. I wanted to make things right for him. I wanted to I wanted to fix him. And then, incredibly, the first time I came across Michael Neill was in 2013, I guess, and he was doing a talk to the NLP Society. As part of his talk, and I think most of you will probably recognize this, part of his talk, he got everybody to do an exercise in listening, the listening exercise, famous one. And I sat there, and my partner was the guy who was sitting next to me at the time, who I didn't know. And we went through the exercise, which, as you might know, was kind of, you had to listen to be angry, or next time you had to listen to agree, and then the next time you had to listen with nothing on your mind. It was really interesting how it felt to listen with nothing on my mind. How it felt not to be judging the other person and what they were saying, without trying to fix them or having to track what they said, having to understand it. It was a real fascinating experience for me. This was before Supercoach. So I was so interested in my experience of this listening exercise that I went home and I thought to myself, I wonder how it might be if it was possible for me to listen to my dad like that. I thought, next time I do it, next time I go and see him, I will try it out. Next time I went to see him, I forgot, because he absolutely he like broke stuff, and he was like, he threw the dinner that I'd made him at me, or I completely forgot about listening. I got really angry. So the time after that, I made a commitment to not do the shopping or do the cooking, but I made a commitment to sit with him and just listen. And he did his usual thing, so angry at me and my sister. He would come up very close to me. He would like spit in my face with anger. But there was something interesting that happened with me, because it felt different. It felt like I was observing this conversation rather than getting caught up in it. So I noticed that when my father started talking about having to see the doctor, he got really angry about having to see the doctor. And what I would normally have done is I would normally have said to him, look, Dad, the doctor is there to help you. You will make you feel better, and you won't have to put up with this pain anymore. That's what I would normally done. I would have tried to fix him. And instead of doing that, I listened and I nodded, and I just didn't try to stop him. And it occurred to me as I was listening to him, that he was afraid. Now, I didn't know why. I found out later that in a different conversation that I had with him, that he had a fear of going to the doctors because he thought that they would take him to hospital and he would never come home again. And it made me think of all the times that I would have said, "Oh, Dad," I would have pushed it away and said, "Dad, no, you've got to go and see the doctor. You can't not see the doctor." I hadn't heard his heart. Because I was so full of my own judgment, my own idea of what he should do and what he should be what he should be doing. He carried on talking, he carried on being angry. And I began to feel very strange. It was like it wasn't me. It was like I wasn't being affected by his aggression. I was feeling compassion for it. Now, bearing in mind, I'd had 50 years of aggression and violence from my father. So this was really strange to feel. And so as the conversation, as he kept talking, I noticed his anger very slowly subsiding. Now, this is interesting. So my dad had early onset, I think, of dementia. I don't think it was that early because he was about 90. But one of the problems with the dementia was that he couldn't remember words. And so when he was trying to talk and he couldn't remember a word, he would get really angry with himself about that. And what was really interesting was that as he very slowly slowed down his mind, as he became more reflective, he began to remember the word that he was looking for. This was a surprise to him. The more reflective he got, the more he slowed down, the more interesting the stories became. He would talk about the war, which he'd never talked about before. He talked about the guys that were with him in the trenches, and he began to tell me funny stories. And by the end of the conversation, he was telling me about Christmas at home in Poznan with his 5 sisters and this huge Christmas tree. He never talked about that before either. there was a point where he said, "I'm sorry," to me. And when I asked why, he said, "I didn't know how to be a parent to you. All I knew was how my dad parented me." And right at the end of the conversation, he said, "I didn't know you could love me so much." He'd never used the word love in a conversation with me before. So from that day on, our relationship changed. I mean, he he still had his moments, but there was a recognition to it. There was a stepping out of this habitual story that we'd had about each other for 50 years. The last 5 years of his life, I spent time with him and absolutely loved every moment of it. I was with him in hospital when he died. He used to say, "I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. I don't want to be here." So when he did die, I was grateful. I was grateful because I knew he was at peace, but also I was grateful for that last 5 years that we had. It changed everything for us. And I'm kind of reminded of the Rumi quote, beyond all wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. Meet me there. Beyond our story that we have of each other, whoever we are, there's a deeper part of us that recognizes that we're one. And that probably was one of the most incredible, life-changing insights and experiences that I had. And that was right at the beginning. It changed all my relationships. How I showed up in the world. I can still get really grumpy. I can still listen to the stories. I can get judgmental and crazy. But then I see what I'm doing at some point. And I have found that it has changed every relationship that I've had. Listening without the story. Listening for what doesn't come and go. Listening for what somebody's heart wants to say. And Sid talked about the principles. He said it's all just love and understanding. Forget about mind, thought, and consciousness. It's all just love and understanding. And when we listen to somebody without the story of who they are and who we are, it has to bring forth love and understanding. It has to bring forth who we really are. Sorry, I've gone on a bit, haven't I? It's like half an hour of that. Thank you for listening. It's really important to me to talk about it. Happy birthday, Dad. That's what we're up to, isn't it? That's what we're all up to. We're up to meeting people in that field, beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. That's where we meet who we really are. Thank you for listening. Does anybody have any thoughts, ideas, reflections, anything you'd like to discuss? Lilia?
It's me?
It's you.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the beautiful history from your father. It's really touched me. And I think for the first time, I understand, listen in a deeper level. When you were talking about it, I could feel in my heart that I have tried to listen, but to what people have on their mind, but I have my thought about how could I help them? How could I get them out of the trouble? And it struck me now that when I listen from my heart, then I'm in the now. So grateful. Thank you.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. You're absolutely right. When we're listening without an agenda, when we're listening without trying to fix people or trying to take them somewhere, we become present. Like you say, in the now. And in that space of presence, it becomes obvious what needs to be said, or it becomes obvious whether just silence would be the best thing. That's where we hear our wisdom. That's where life creates through us. And it's such a beautiful place. You must all have had the same experience as me. Sometimes I'll kind of say something that comes to me and I have no idea why I said it, or even if it was relevant. But sometimes it's just the right, beautiful question. Just the right thing. And that's why I love what we do. Because we get to connect with people on a soul level. We get to connect with people in that gorgeous field where there's no judgment, no agenda. Life takes care of us in that place. And whatever our client needs, they will get, regardless of what we think they need or regardless of what they think they need. Life kind of has it as a way of finding a solution, you know. So it's not all on us, thank goodness. Does that make sense? Does that? Okay. Bless you. Bless you, Sonia. Thank you for the question. So good to see you. See ya.
Hello, brother.
Hello, gorgeous.
I miss you so much.
And
How are
you
you?
too. I'm fine. I'm really well. I am loving you guys. I really am. This is just beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for your introduction. And well, it just brings up so many memories and events and experiences that could be shared. But here, I just mentioned something because you spoke about your dad. And I had a similar experience, but after my mom's death, that I was in a very bad place because she was the only, she was the only one, so like the last member of the family type who lived. And because, well, I spent most of my life abroad in different countries, I didn't get to spend much time with her after my teenage years. And just going back into your story about how you got involved with this therapy, was that I was so desperate and depressed that I knew I had to do something. I just kept looking and looking and looking. And then once I heard Michael Neill on YouTube, and after the first sentence, I said to myself, this is what I've been looking for. Not him, but the message, the soul behind what he was saying. And that was when I started looking it up and joining the Supercoach Academy, where I had the pleasure of meeting you, great, and all the other lovely people. And it just really after reading and listening to the audio version of the Inside Out Revolution, I listened to it 10 times actually. The 10th time something just clicked.
Yeah.
I used to go to bed every night, kissing the picture of my mother and my sister that, you know, was executed at the age of 22, which, well, was the biggest trauma I had experienced in my life. But just from that moment on, everything changed. I started appreciating these people. Instead of missing them physically, I just saw something else, something much, much greater. And that just turned everything upside down, really, everything inside out. And it was a miracle to me. And I'm still in awe how little we need to do as coaches, as parents, as human beings only. You know, I mean, how little is on us. We just need to see that once we see that, then everything changes, because it's always been there. The invitation from life has always been there. But we were not in a position, the right mindset to open that envelope with the invitation card in it. That's all we need to do, just to see that. And as you said rightly, life takes care of everything. It always has and always will.
Yeah.
So just a little short also about listening with nothing on our mind. I guess that is part of the package. For me, at least, I can just speak from my own experiences, that when I saw the bigger picture, the connection between me as an individual, not just physically, but also a spiritual one, with life, once that connection came live to me, that was it. Everything else fell into place. And as Rumi says, he says, once you got 100, 90 is already there. Don't worry about that. It's always on my mind that when I feel great, then I thought, okay, this is the 100. And everything else is, well, manageable, doable, tolerable, whatever that, you know, that we are suffering from in our lives. It just loses its color, you know, its importance. And it's not about those things which are going on in life. It's about us, where we are standing, where we are looking at the whole thing from. So this greater connection, actually, to me, has since, well, 2017, when I got to know this 3P principles, and 2018 when I trained with you guys, it's just been amazing. It's not about the place. It's not about the people. It's not about what we do. It's not about what I do or where I am, what people. There's much greater thing going on there. You know, and it feels safer. Much more safer place to live in the world. And then when you feel safe, you're more likely to bring out all your potential. Then you listen more. You'll judge less. You'll be more curious instead of being judging. And it just, everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
This
life without the story is just so much more gentler, and kinder, and more compassionate and beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for this event. Thank you for being here.
Bless you. Bless you.
Love you. Love you.
I love you, man. I love you. Thank you. So good to see you. No. Okay. Do we have anybody else that's got any reflections or insights or questions? Has it been useful in any way? Okay. So how about coaching? How about coaching? Has anybody got any anything they'd like to talk about in 3P coaching? Situations with clients or examples of things that have gone well or gone maybe not so well? I'd love to talk about your coaching. How about you, Thomas?
If I have a question about coaching,
Or you can tell me a little bit about your coaching journey, because I'm quite interested to know.
I can tell you, you bring about a very nice feeling. And we hear always in this conversation, it's about the feeling.
Yeah.
So I was sitting with nothing on my mind really, and I heard my name. I was like,
It's like
my
being at school,
name.
isn't it?
But I'm not my name. I'm out there in the field. You call me back anyway. So no, I just reflected on how everybody's sort of, it's so universal with dads and moms, and if you aren't one yourself, you come from those. And even if I've never met my dad, I got so emotional about my own life and the relationship with my kids, and how things got so much easier when I sort of just be with them, just on with them and sort of say what occurs to me, and I don't have to be anyone. I already am.
So tell me about that.
Yeah, it's so comforting to not having to accomplish anything or do anything. Just be there for them and listen to them. And in my mind, I love this conversation so much because I really love myself, I suppose, when it comes down to the bottom line, because I'm so free, and as Sia was saying, it's sort of, I feel safe, and the safest place to be around is truth for me. And it was not like that at all. Was never comfortable with truth. Always had to sort of put some nice sugar on top of the coating and try to fix and look for next best thing and all that. And now it's like, it's amazing what can occur to you when you actually slow down and all sort of, is the word reveal itself before you? You never actually thought of it, like when your daddy just like showed up for the first time in your life after 50 years.
Yeah.
And that loving connection, and that's healing power, like 100%. So that's what's coming up for me. And just
I love what you said about just being, having nothing on your mind. I think what I notice in myself and with a lot of people is we're so lost in thinking about what we're going to do next. You know, I remember, you know, I used to wake up in the morning, I used to run the bath, and then I used to do a little bit of exercise. And while I was doing exercise, I was thinking about, I need to turn the bath off because it's going to go over the edge, you know, and everything was about the next thing. Life was about the next thing, not the thing that I was doing. So being able to notice when you're thinking about the next thing, and to and to be able to stop, literally stop, and come back to what we're doing, feel what we're feeling, hear what we're hearing. Then we open ourselves up to what that moment wants. You know, what that moment needs, what life wants to create through us in that moment. Instead of like not listening, next thing, not listening. I'm a big fan of what the moment wants. And that's the same in coaching for me. Sometimes we have to lead, obviously. Sometimes we have to curate the call. But when we get the chance to be, and get the chance to come back, and then we can hear the beautiful question. You know, the question, that beautiful question pops into our mind that we don't know the answer to. And you ask it, and then we have the chance for the client's wisdom to come forward, not mine, not what I want them to know. Do we get chance in that space where they get reflective? After, you know, them being busy-minded, talking about the problems and the challenges, then when they hit that space, that's what the beautiful question is about for me. It kind of stops people, and they have to look to what they don't know. They have to look for what's fresh. Even if they don't have the words, they have to get a sense of what they're feeling, seeing. I love that space. Love that space.
But to be honest, it was quite annoying in the beginning when people sort of heard something and I was not even part of it. But you said something. I didn't even remember what I said. I was like, okay, it could bum you out. But if you keep looking, you're going to see.
Believe me, you know, despite my best efforts, you know, sometimes I would be coaching somebody and I would be thinking, oh, if they could only see this, that would make everything change, you know. So I'd kind of talk about, and I'd ask them a question that I knew the answer to, and despite my best efforts of trying to get them where I wanted them, they kind of say, I get reflective, and then they'd say, oh yes, I've got it. I can see that's amazing. They'll have an insight, and then I'll say, okay, I'll be all, you know, pleased with myself. And I'll say, okay, what did you see? And they'll tell me something completely different than I had imagined. You know, it was a total, you know, sort of ego breaker. It's like, but they'd seen something. That's kind of how cool life is, isn't it? It can, despite our best efforts, sometimes people hear stuff that's healing, and that was a big lesson for me. There's really is, there is less to do than we think there is.
Amen.
Amen. Bless you, brother.
Thanks, Stef.
Kenny.
Thank you, Stef, for taking us to this place. was thinking of that when you talked about it, and I also see it like a space of trust. So that we can feel safe and let our heart speak what's important to us.
Yeah.
Like your father, when you said that, you mentioned love.
Yeah. I kind of think of the Namaste verse is like I honor the place in you where the entire universe resides. When you're in that place in you and I'm in that place in me, there's only one of us. That recognition of oneness that we don't have words for. That you said beautifully, that trust and that safety. There's that feels like oneness to me. That love and compassion, kindness, that's all part of that space that we as a humanity so rarely visit.
It's a lot of fixing outside of us all the time, and things that needs to be done, and everything, instead of just and as I see it, it's you only need to dip into it, and then you know what's true. I mean, you take it with you. That moment, it's so.
That's kind of, it feels like that is what doesn't come and go.
Yeah, I love that.
Everything else comes and goes.
Yeah.
So what we put our trust in? What comes and goes, or what always stays? What is always there underneath the noise?
Then I'm thinking also like that. I just had that thought now that the ego is trying to protect the heart, but the heart doesn't need any protection.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, the ego is kind of innocent, isn't it? It's just programming. Just conditioning. So do you think that's, I know it's a concept, but do you think that's what we're here to learn?
What do you say, Stef? That
I said, do you think maybe that's what we're here to learn? That's what we're here to find?
just one word pops up in my head, and it's we're here to learn love. I think that's
Yeah.
Or that we are love, that we are that
Yeah.
space in somewhere.
As like Sid said, it's all just love and understanding. That's it. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Take your chances. Has anyone a question for Stef? In the now. I heard something today that nothing outside of me can affect my life. I found that quite provoking at the time. And when I let it sort of just be, and it came back on and off, and it was quite interesting to see that, seeing more and more true.
I think there's a sorry.
You know, I guess it's for me sort of the perfume of unfolding for me when sort of you can't get stuck, but it feels like you're stuck, and you're sort of lost, but it's not lost. You're just like sort of losing your bearings for a while because you haven't seen the full expression of that. And I guess there's no end to see more of it either. And that to be like curious about that instead of trying to see the end as we are conditioned to, or what the next thing is. Just be more curious about.
What do you think it means, Thomas? I'm going to have to put my life on here because I'm getting redder by the moment. It's not much of a help, is it? What do you think what does that mean for you?
What showed up for me was that I was at the time using an old formal, sort of an old, my old thoughts to try to live my new life. Sort of, it helped me then, but it's not so helpful now. It's mostly in the way. And then when I just let it be, it sort of left by itself and I enjoyed. So the more sort of power I put into it, focused on it, or tried to like get around it, the more eminent it became, and then sort of just took care of itself. It sort of decided to leave me when I didn't pay any interest in it. And it's sort of, you said something just a couple of minutes ago about when we slow down, sort of the answer comes to us. And it always points back to the same constant, for me anyway, that sort of I cannot feel anything I don't think about or pay attention to. So, and I constantly know that my thinking is kind of off when I'm grumpy about it.
Yeah,
that's a good red flag for me nowadays. So when I when it feels important, I have to solve it, or must be somebody else or something else, or the situation or the environment or whatever. It's never that. It's only one usual suspect.
Remember, there's a quote attributed to Sid that stopped me in my tracks when I first heard it. It goes something like, there is nothing outside of you that can harm you. There is nothing outside of you that can help you. There is no outside. I got a bit angry when I heard that. Like you. But I think there's we've got to be able to forgive ourselves for forgetting. We are human as well as spirit. We're on the edge of both. And it's all divine. It has to be, it's all right. I do sometimes kick myself when it takes a while for the penny to drop. But it's good to have Sid to remind me every now and again. Yep. You've been fooled again. But for me, and I don't know, this is just me, I think we kind of misunderstand feelings, don't we? We have our own judgment about feelings. We make them good and bad, wrong and right. And when we do that, we get more into the misunderstanding. But that's divine as well.
I remember once we had a conversation a couple of years ago, and I don't even remember if you said this, or if I remember it the right way, but you said, I heard. I listened, and then I heard something. Just came to me. Timing is always perfect. And that blew my mind, and it still does. And it's like that sort of simplicity, it is what it is. And so what? What's next? It doesn't really matter, because you sort of accept. And for me, that's such a wonderful place to just stay with. And it doesn't matter how you feel about it. It really doesn't matter, because the feelings will pass, and just stay with it. For me personally, of course.
It's so innocent, isn't it? That reminds me of a story about when I was doing my apprenticeship with Michael. We used to travel together, and then in between traveling, he would call me and we'd have a coaching session and stuff. towards the end of the year, it was like I was struggling to find something to talk about that wasn't thought, you know. I really was having a real problem. And then I knew he was due to call me. It was when it was in the days of telephone coaching. And I was desperately trying to think of what I could say that we could coach around. And I remember thinking, I know, I have it. I'm always really early for things. Ever since I was a kid, I get to school like an hour early, and for business meetings, I'll be there like 2 hours early. And you know what's wrong with that? You know why is that? Whatever. And so when he called, I went. He said, you know, what do you want to talk about? I'm glad you asked. Well, so I went into it full, but what? 2 hours early for meetings for it. That's insecurity. Is this, you know, that, whatever. And after I'd finished, I went on for a full 10 minutes after I finished. This was the sum total of Michael's coaching, right? There was a silence, and he said, "So what?" And I kind of remembered how I kind of got into this. What does it mean about me that I'm 2 hours early? And just by him saying, "So what?" it was like, got lost again. So that was a really powerful coaching session. Ivan, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Nice to see you. It seems
Great.
Moving in with your girlfriend is doing you good. You're looking superb.
Thank you. It's all makeup.
Okay. I really love what you shared about your father.
Thank you.
I had some kind of similar experience with my father, with the difference. He died when I was 25, so we didn't have the opportunity to clear things out.
Right.
And due to that, I was mad at him for 30 years. Until I saw it. As you said about your father, he was brought up that way. So was my father. And when I realized that, the ton of bricks on my shoulders just fell off. He did what he thought was best.
Yeah. We all
and then,
do.
When you're saying we are love and understanding, make me think of Jack Pransky. And I think in one of his later books, he's writing, we are peace, love, and understanding, and the capacity to think we are not. And that sits with me.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Nobody get a bulletproof vest just because we know we get the insight or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We stumble, we get fooled up on the highest on the bench, so to speak, over and over again.
Over and over. Innocent.
And the good thing, it's a short time we are there. Yeah. At least I am a short time. But I'm fooled. I stumble all over. And then
that thing, listening and hearing the insecurity in my client. That's the magic bullet. And how that insecurity can show up in a bunch of different feelings. But in the bottom, for me, it's insecurity.
Yeah.
So yes, once again, Jack Pransky, deep listening is his sign. And
that was Sid's thing, wasn't it? Insecurity.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think that's part of our conditioning, programming, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it is we are subjected to as children. It's designed to make us feel not good enough.
Yeah. That was my experience with my father.
Really?
He never ever once said I love you to me. I was never enough. Yeah. And that's where insecurity grows.
Yeah.
So I had a long life, 30 years after his death, of insecurity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me too. Me too. There's, it's, Sid talked about, we have the best job in the world. We get to tap people on the shoulder and wake them up to the true magnificence of who they are. We get to tap people on the shoulder, but we can be so loving and compassionate with that because we know what it's like.
Yeah.
We don't try to spiritually bypass it with that's wrong.
And as you said, it's the best job in the world, coaching.
Yeah.
And watching the glow in the eye, bing.
Yeah.
When it's, oh yeah.
Mm.
Thank you.
Bless you, Yvonne. Bless you, my friend. I want to ask people just one question, really. What, if anything, what have people heard today? What's the main takeaway? I'd love to hear what you heard, because I bet it was better than mine. What have you seen for yourself? Could I ask you, Peter?
Yes, you can. Thank you for tonight. It's been really lovely. Thank you.
God bless you.
I have a history within NLP for many years. I've been training that kind of listening within NLP. My takeaway for this night is just listening without an agenda. I think myself quite good at it, to show up and just be with people and listen to them.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get caught up in my thinking and history and judgment and agenda and so on. And the interesting part is that something in me is tapping me on my shoulder and, hey there, let that be and just listen.
I have a post-it note on my side of my screen that just says empty.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me to show up as much as possible without me there, without my expectations, my judgments, my insecurity, and my agenda of where I think the client should go. Doesn't always work, you know. But I do find that, I don't know if you notice this, but when I'm doing a coaching session, sometimes Stef comes in. You know, sometimes there's my looking at the scoreboard saying, "Oh, I haven't had an insight yet," and you know, I've only got 10 minutes to go. And sometimes Stef comes in, but I'm getting better at noticing him, because when I notice him, I've got the trust to be able to kind of step back and empty out and just allow whatever the moment needs, rather than what I think it needs.
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful, Peter. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who else? Oh, Sunny.
Hi, Stef.
Good evening, Sunny. How are you?
I'm feeling well.
Good.
I'm good.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Stef. And I would like to start to thank you for the beautiful story from your life. Made such a race of well-being within myself. And you asked about what I take with me from this evening here. What came to mind when you spoke was two things. One was my remembering of my own struggling, going from, for many years, I've been listening to people, to deep listening to people.
Right. Yeah.
That was a struggle. That shift.
I know. I know.
And the other thing that came to my mind while listening to you and all was that when I have had many experienced in my life when I've been present, my mind is silent and have no agenda and no expectations, etc. And many of those occasions, there is surprising things happening.
Really?
And quite often it's funny also. And one of the occasions that came to me while you were speaking was 1 year ago. I was in Denmark. I was in Copenhagen, and I was attending Bill Petit and Linda Petit was there. And what's good to know is that I have had problems understanding Danish.
Oh, really?
The language, Danish language. I have never been able to understand Danish, especially if there are Danish people speaking towards each other, because that's quite
quickly,
fast, Wow. So I've never been able to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the lunch break there, when I was there, and there have been so much love in the room. Wow. With Linda and Bill Petit, So I just sat down with my sandwich in a table outside there, and there was 3 Danish ladies there, women who were speaking quite fast, having a discussion in Danish, So I just sat there and tried to listen, try to listen. I didn't try to listen. I just sat there and listened to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I dropped my jaw to the ground, because suddenly I understood everything they said.
Oh, wow.
All of the discussion, and I was so astonished. What's happening?
How cool is that?
Yeah, how cool is that?
That is amazing. That is amazing.
It took me really by surprise. I just would like to share that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That just shows you, doesn't it, when we let go of the fear and trying and to figure it out, then our kind of mind does it naturally. Get out of our own way, and we have so much more facility than when we're scrambling. That's beautiful.
I got many stories that's really amazing and funny, but this is what came to me when I listened.
Thank you. I've got a question for you, actually. If I was wondering, what was it that you saw that helped you to listen deeply after your struggles with it?
I'm actually not really certain about that, but what I remember was that I started to realize a little bit that when I maybe didn't have the answers all the time as I thought I did. And then I started to bite my tongue, and don't express what I already knew that would benefit my clients. And then I realized again that I was wrong. And then it started like that. So I bit my tongue and understood that, wow, how much wrong am I?
That's perfect. Yeah, perfect.
And then it rolled on like that. And then in the end, I just get quiet and gave my client space instead.
Yeah, I find it much easier nowadays to kind of default to the position of I know nothing. I know nothing. I'm safer that way. I think that really helps me listen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sonny. Bless you, my friend. That was great.
Thank you, Stef.
Thank you. Thomas.
I want to be responsible with everybody's time and things like that. So we sort of in my mind, we should round up now. And my question to you, Stef, is anybody is interested getting to know you better, or where can we find you?
Right. Well, I have a website, which is called, and I don't know whether it might be easier to post it on the Facebook page, but it's called yourunlimitedpotential.co.uk.
We will post it as well.
Okay, and my email address is, I'll give you the simple one, which is Stefan Cyb, STEFANCYB @gmail.com. And I would love to hear from you guys. I really, really would love to hear from you. It would be really fantastic to have some conversations with you.
Cool. So thank you everyone for showing up and spend time with us tonight. Thank you for coming, Stef. It really...
Oh, there's such a wonderful, warm, lovely group here. It's it's a profound honor to get to spend time with you. It really is. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stef.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Stef.
Take care.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.